All right, we're live. Welcome everyone to Table Talk, where we talk all things tabletop. I'm your host, the Bad Luck Gamer, with my co-host Glue Boy.
Hello.
And today I got really interesting chat. We've been having a lot of interesting meta chats about TTRPGs, and today we'll be talking about slow burn games because unintentionally, my expedition. I'm clear obscure brained right now. My the 333 game has turned into kind of like a slow burn game, which has been not bad. It's been interesting, but we'll talk about that here in a little bit. Also, thank you to Baby Huey for the Prime sub. By the way, you guys can sub with Prime, help support the channel, especially because I haven't been making YouTube videos lately, and I really could use the help. But before we get into any of that, Alex, what have you been up to?
Man, I have been on a rabbit hole. I have a video concept that I'm working on. I'm scripting it out, and I think it's a pretty cool topic I don't see talked about. Specifically, I'm going about understanding the orcs, and the specific thing about the orcs, their WA powers, like collective group of belief abilities. Right. And I went in with the intention of you know what? I want to find where the line in the sand, because I know the community overblows how significant it is, a lot. But how much? Where's the where does the lore stand? And more and more and more, I am starting to believe that the orcs' power doesn't work that way, and they don't have it. I'm starting to believe it's made up.
Interesting.
There's nothing, dog. The earliest form of orcs having that is literally people them saying orcs believe it works, and that's it. And there's a single mechanicus guy who's studying the orcs who said the orc weapons work because the orcs believe them to work, and that was his theory. And there is nothing concrete in any of the actual lore text, any books, any codexes, anything that directly makes a confirmation that the belief has a mechanical effect for the orcs. I'm losing my mind. Everything I knew was fake. I knew that I thought at least the color shit was real, but I don't know. I have to dig deeper.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I guess it's just because everyone just kind of accepts it because they're the orcs.
Yeah, I was looking for sources, because normally at some of the wiki pages, I don't like using them. I use them mainly to be okay, where is the source? Where is this claim coming from?
Right, yeah.
And then it was uncited. And I looked at the other sources, and it was just citing codexes that just mention orcs. It doesn't say what they're saying it says. I found Reddit threads of people breaking it down too, and there's a couple moments where they're yeah, this thing is confirmation of this. I read it, I'm no the fuck it isn't. This is saying something completely different. And, man, and so I'm starting to be hit more with the belief, because I already knew 40K is a game of telephone and it's lore. And people will spread lore, and it becomes understood to be true when it definitely isn't. I think the orc stuff is the most extreme example of this, because if I'm reading this correctly, every single orc story you've heard about them believing stuff is false. None of it's true.
Maybe I gotta read some of the orc books.
I was reading them, and it was purely they never mention it. Even the books from the orcs POV, it is never it never touches on it, never talks about it. The most it says is orcs have the ability essentially to make tech that just shouldn't work, but it works perfectly fine. And apparently orc guns and stuff, if you give it to a human, it won't function. It just functions for the orc, which is why, okay, they believe it to work, and therefore it does theory. Kind of, I think from that small point in 4th edition, I forget what year that is, I think it's early 2000s. From that point, it seems like it got posted online, and then it spread out of control.
Yes, slow burn TTRPGs. And have you read the Orc Codex?
Which one?
That's a good question.
I have read many of them, a lot of them from the older editions.
That's
I
definitely
have
an
a
interesting
collection
rabbit
of
hole,
PDFs.
though.
It is. It's fascinating. I love finding sources. I love having, because it's just, if I'm gonna like spew something, I want to have a source behind it, and that's just how I live my life. And looking for a source that directly is talking about this thing being a thing. Essentially, yes, I've read the codexes, and the codexes at most state that orc tech shouldn't work the way it does, but it does. And it states stuff like orcs emit psychic energy that is really, it's a minor gestalt consciousness where orcs together strong. Like that's what it is. And orcs are able to kind of like find each other and like sense each other's presence because they just emanate this low psychic field, and that's what builds up and creates the giant was. Is like the field grows and grows and grows, and other orcs sense it and have that feeling to rush towards it. Like that's what the Wa is, and it's nothing about collective belief.
What's up, Zarek? Nice to have you here.
Hello.
That's interesting. I do think that would be an interesting title because, like, I definitely think the Wa is more of like a meta thing where it's the people who believe in the orcs rather than the orcs believing in lore.
That's a fun angle. Like the angle I'm taking currently, at least like I script as I go, so I figure out what my angle is usually later. But like one of the points I am gonna make is that I am not really against false lore being spread about 40k. I don't really care. I'm not that much of a dork. I'll correct things if I think it's like a serious conversation about the lore and it's being used as like a fact. And I'm like, it doesn't work like that. The effect of orcs having this like reputation of this is how they work brings a lot of people into 40k. And like as such, orcs are one of the favorite factions, so I don't view it as a negative that this lie is being spread, but I think there should be people out there showing that it's not actually true. You should know it's not true once you decide to like actually look into the game. That's where I stand. And the title of my video so far is you're wrong about the orcs, then in parentheses, but that's okay.
I think that's a good title.
Yeah, I just gotta find that line.
I have no idea what I'm gonna make content on when I eventually get the chance to. When
got a bunch of angles.
When my daughter's a little older, we're getting there. But also we're getting married in like a month, so it's just gonna be a busy month too. It's just crazy that I haven't made any content since February.
Bro's been busy. It's just it's fun because the one like content creator I follow that I know as a child, it's Northern Lion, and from what it sounds like, the reason he can do a lot of the stuff he does is purely because his daughter is in school.
Yeah.
And then also the fact that his wife just would take care of their daughter when he was streaming, and then they'd switch. Like that was the thing because he just made money that way.
Also, another big thing, we finally have the house to ourselves. Finally.
Yeah, they moved.
They moved. So now we have a room that we can put baby stuff in, and it's nice. But now it's like, okay, now it's finally time to like work on the house in its entirety.
Gotta like settle everything in and settle it in for the long haul.
Yeah.
I feel that. So
it's been a good time. As far as like stuff for me, besides the stuff I just mentioned as well, it's mostly just been all the crazy cool games that have been coming out lately. Claire Obscure Expedition 33, super good. Probably the best JRPG to release in recent times. Also, Monster Hunter, still crushing it, still killing it. I haven't done Arc Tempered Raid out yet, but I want to.
I have not either. I tried playing Monster Hunter like Wilds a while ago, and I was so rusty because I played too much Rise. and so I was like, I was just not doing things well. I got my ass beat by a Rathalos, and I'm like, okay, maybe I gotta like slowly relearn.
Yeah. I've been messing around with some of the other some of the other weapons. Lance actually is super good.
I'll take your word for it. Like, I tried it, couldn't get into it, but I've seen people do cool shit with Lance.
If you want a weapon that lets you just be in the enemy's face all the time and like can't be removed whatsoever, Lance is really, really good. Like,
It seemed like it.
it's the charge they got now where they can just like run at the enemy constantly and like drill into them. It's pretty good. And then you can use your mount, your secret to do it as well, which is funny. So it's good, and there's more weapons. This is like the first Monster Hunter that I've been like sitting here honestly thinking about, like, God, I want to do this weapon. I want to do this weapon. And then the 333, not Expedition 33, has been going really, really well. It's been developing very quickly, and some of the systems we keep tripping on just fit into the game so neatly. And I feel like now that the role playing has started to roll and we're starting to like actually get into the game, I'm really starting to see where this game shines, and it's in all the best ways. So yeah, we'll actually talk more about it because it relates to today's topic as well. But other than that, yeah, no, I'm kind of... There's so much Pathfinder stuff I want to get into. What I might do is try to hop on by the time Battle Cry comes out.
I think it's a fair idea. Like, at least see about the schedule you can set up to make it when those classes drop.
Because let's see here. When does Battle Cry drop? July.
Oh man, that's not far.
Yeah, so sometime in July, which is still a little bit of ways away, but like that'll be a good one for me to be like, all right, if I'm gonna hop back in, now's the time, kind of thing. I also want to look into Starfinder too, and the Cosmere RPG should be dropping around the same time as well, so it'll be a good time. My daughter will be, let's see, she's going to be 4 months here soon. And by then, yeah, so around July, she'll be around 6 months, which means that her sleeping schedule should be pretty balanced out, except for her sleep progressions, and she should be getting more mobile. So I might just put her down in like a playpen behind me and do some work.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's talk about slow burn TTRPGs. So for those who don't know, a slow burn in any kind of genre is something that takes a while before the action or the main the main source of tension really starts, right? It takes time to like establish characters, establish mood, world build. If you've watched So Frieren, that's a slow burn. It's a very like, you know roughly what's going on, but it's not like all action. It takes time to look into each of the characters and look into the themes of the story and everything like that. But a slow burn TTRPG is an interesting concept because that means that nothing super exciting happens except for maybe like an intro sequence for like a good number of sessions. And that sounds inherently not good for what a game should be, quote unquote. But then again, TTRPGs are unique in the fact that it's a narrative experience. And
I think it sounds like already it's one of those things where because I've been in slow burn games, like we have,
yeah,
and one of the reasons it lends itself like pretty well is because our style is more naturalistic role play. So we just kind of role play out these characters. But if you're going into a game with like, all right, I'm gonna play this game, we're gonna fight monsters, we're gonna get loot, and then you spend like hours and hours and hours just talking and like nothing's happening and like the plot hasn't shown up yet, you're just like, okay. Like I can see some players getting frustrated at that, but it's like got to do the talk and stuff. It right off the bat, it like I'm down for some slow burn games. I'd rather know if it's a slow burn game, like what's the intent first, but you know.
Yeah, and so I mentioned it earlier, but the 333, it's kind of turned into a slow burn a little bit. To be fair, we were missing 2 of the players for the second session. But the third session was replaying like something we had hand-waved before, but it was just a lot of role play. And it was a lot of role play initiated purely by the players. The players knew roughly meta-wise what was happening, but they decided to engage in some of the, you know, role play for the sake of role play moments. And it was an interesting session. It was also super funny, especially because it was mostly at Booter's character's expense.
Yeah.
But it was interesting, and it made me kind of realize that, like, how the 333 sets up its system. Because the 333 essentially exists in perpetual downtime, where things can happen. The players can go on like essentially an adventure, but the adventure part usually is something that is like a short amount of time, and then certain things need to happen before the story keeps going, you know. I've been building into more of the mystery of what's been happening. And some of the systems, I'm just realizing that the game really lends itself to like what would make, like, this is an interesting question. What would make a good slow burn game? Like not this is what our group does, but the game itself in design wise is more designed towards a slower, more built out story. What would make a game a good slow burn TTRPG?
I think it's the fact that it is set that like a month of time is being spent in between like adventure bits. So like because of that, it's just naturally going to lend itself to something slower. Even though I think the system at its bones can also be modified to be like Lancer paced, because I can really easily see people being like, all right, we're kind of doing like a mission sortie thing. And then like, all right, end of session, just what are you guys doing for the next like 5 weeks? Like just have that be like, all right, write it down, or just tell me, we run through it real quick, bump up your things. All right, good game. Like you can do that, but the system lends itself to a lot harder of a like play out the time, do some stuff in that meantime. So it is just like slower paced in the game's time frame.
Yeah. Also, welcome, Devin.
Hello.
It's interesting because the more I think about a slow burn TTRPG, like what elements would I think would exist in like that kind of game? Because my initial thought would be, oh, this is more of like a slice of lifestyle TTRPG. You know, it's not about an adventure. It's more about the small drama that happens around like normal life, you know, and the world's not necessarily at risk. But the more I think about it, the reason why I think the 333 really lends itself to that is the emphasis on mechanics around things like even NPCs. So we have the bond system where you can make bonds with people in the world, and that bond has mechanical benefits for the players. Certain things they gain access to, certain things that they could use. And I know Alex's character here recently was looking into like making friends with someone in security so he can get around security more easily, honestly, which
Yeah,
is
I
funny.
need a Noah guy.
Yeah, it's fun. I like the idea of it. And we just last session, like we had an investigation. Alex found stalked an individual, found an individual to like be friends with, and then happened to come across this person on a bus and just starts yapping about this guy's hobbies like out loud to gain his attention.
Yeah, you gotta make it feel like he wants to be your friend, and you gotta find the perfect guy that then you could be like, oh yeah, by the way, I'll pay you to commit crimes every once in a while. Because you gotta find the perfect storm of loyalty to the money and loyalty to the person.
Right. And it's interesting because that's something that just wouldn't happen in like a Pathfinder game, for instance. Like it
At least
could.
not mechanically. Like, not as mechanical. If I really wanted to, in like Plague Watch being more modern day, I could find this guy. There's just not the systems in place to do it. It'd be you improving bullshit in front of me.
Well, also it's just like narratively speaking, or not narratively, but like mechanically speaking, there's not a lot of incentive to do so. I mean, sure, you might come up with an interesting idea, and sure, that's something that can come up, but that's something it only exists if you think about it, right? And not because the game systems kind of push you in that direction. Because in the 333, the bond system is like, oh, people are useful. So like you start thinking more about making bonds with specific types of people for that reason. Where in a game like Pathfinder, you would have to like that would just have to be your plan that you concoct, you know.
It'd be a much quicker thing. Like it would be making, like I could see it be just being like, hey, let me find a guy, let me try to bribe him. Like a lot quicker of a thing. Unless it was like a very specific type of game where I would take the similar actions I took in that last session in like a different system.
Well,
like if it was a very slow game, like a very role play heavy, because the way I'm also thinking of it, it's just kind of stuck in my head with the concept of a slow burn game, is the D&D game I was in every Friday.
yeah.
Because that game, yeah, is super slow paced because it's like we're not like flash forwarding to events. It's literally playing out the day and like going through. It's only a lot of travel time that's hand waved, and there's a lot of like interpersonal like role play stuff and role play with NPCs. It's just most of the game is like talking. It's super, for at least like for a lot of those sessions, you could probably tally up in a row how many sessions went without somebody rolling a dice. And like that I feel is another slow burn game, because we'd have shit get going and be like, oh fuck, let's get going. But like that's a much slower experience.
Yeah. And that was one of the ones I was thinking about as far as slow burn games as well. And it's like, that's like the 333 I think is good because it rewards slow burn. The more you take to develop your characters and the NPCs around you and the world in a sense, I think makes for an overall richer experience. Especially because last session as well, one of the players has a stalker. But this is not like a stalker as in just a weirdo. This is like a supernatural occurrence, right? For some reason or another, the powers of madness have given this person a stalker. And the character's blind, which is even better because it lets me do even creepier things. And I was thinking about it. The stalker, in describing that scene of like things in the house just not being where they thought they were, and they're a blind person, so that's very like, it sticks out more because it's more important for them to know where things are than it is for other people. And then just the idea that you're blind and there's someone in your house just being creepy and weird.
It is like kind of terrifying. Like it's freaky.
And I feel like in another type of game again, it would be harder to recreate that feeling because, like in Pathfinder, for instance, your instinct would be, I just got to fight this thing. I got to go kill this thing or whatever. But in the 333, it's a much scarier game, lethally speaking. It's very easy to die if you're not careful. The Stalker could just shoot you with a gun, and since Booter's character is blind, there'd be very little he could do to stop it.
Yeah.
But not only that, but the pacing of the session overall was much more narratively driven and everything like that. So the Stalker scene, I feel like, felt better because how the scene played out matched the general pace of the session. It wasn't like action, 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 slow scene. It was moderate speed to slow speed scenes leading up to a slow scene for the horror elements to really settle in. Hey Crash, how you doing? And so like I'm curious to think about like what else makes a slow burn game good and what makes a slow burn game bad. I mean, beyond the basics of expectation, right? Because if your complaint about a slow burn game is, well, I don't want to play a slow burn game, well then duh, right?
I also think the big determination is slow burn game in the lens of mechanically lends itself to a playstyle versus that's the style of the specific campaign or group. Because like realistically, you can turn any game's pace, like that can be altered by the GM at a like literal like flip of a coin.
Right.
You can just decide, all right, we're gonna speed this up, we're gonna have less downtime, and we're gonna go snap, 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 like to the parts that matter. Mm-hmm. Or you could have the opposite of we're gonna take a long time to do this, and now an arc in one person's game that might take like, I don't know, maybe a month, will now take like half a year to a year. Like that is, I think, the line, because one I think of is Monster of the Week, where that game, we were extending, I think, the length of that system to like what it allows, because there are a lot of games do not lend itself to that because progression is kind of hard to do in games that really want you to be leveling up constantly.
Yeah.
Like Monster of the Week, I think doesn't hit it well. Lancer is an interesting one because its pacing is designed to be super quick.
Yeah.
But like you can stretch it. I imagine there's ways to do it. D&D only feels bad because the level ups suck.
Yeah. Yeah, it's because, like, again, the 333 progression's happening literally all the time. It makes slow sessions feel less bad because in the end of the day, you're probably still getting some improvements out of that session. Like, in the 333, if you really wanted to, your character could be earning new talents and new skill increases, like, every session, guaranteed. Unless specifically you're choosing to take a long time with like particular roleplay scenes. But I would say the average session, you could easily get an increase every session. Pretty easy. Where like unlike a lot of other games, progression is gated behind typically either total narrative progression or we gotta do stuff XP based progression,
Yeah. And like I feel like it's an interesting balance because both can feel pretty bad progression wise if you try to stretch out that pacing. Like milestone leveling, sure, I get to level up when the GM says I get to level up. And then XP, if you're slowing that down, is like, I'm seeing the big numbers slowly get there.
Yeah.
And like sometimes it hits, sometimes you're like, yay, I get 120 XP, only 12,000 more to go. Like it depends.
Yeah, so it's something that I think it's super fascinating to think about because, in all honesty, I do love slow burn narratives in most forms of media. It does depend on the payout because a slow burn that doesn't have a good payout just doesn't feel good after you're done. You're like
No.
waiting and waiting for things to get interesting because there's just like, okay, they've been building the world and the characters. Let's see, like again, So Free Ren is a really, really good example. All right, see you, Eric. Thanks for stopping by. Is really good at it's very slow paced. It's got some very fun, interesting moments, but like it also has some really, really good action moments that kind of are peppered across the entire story. You know, like it's typically slow. It's typically looking about Free Ren's memories and the things she's learned from her human compatriots or even dwarf compatriots at times and everything. But then you get the awesome battle scene of Stark fighting a dragon and just utterly devastating the dragon, and that's such a hype scene. And that came from a whole episode prior to that of dealing with the fact that Stark is a coward, is constantly afraid, and he thought this entire time that he was protecting the town as a sham, when in actuality he was actually protecting the town just by being there, which is an interesting conversation about how security works in general. But it's something that I would say, if you were to tell me, hey, we're gonna do a slow burn Lancer game, I would probably chafe under that idea, if I'm gonna be honest. Because while I would love having story and everything, and someone who knows like sci-fi better than I do, running it would be interesting. The reason why I would play Lancer is for the cool mechs and the cool mech builds, right? That's what the game rewards me for playing that game.
Yeah. Like the way I can see it happening, and funny enough, I'm basing this off of a one of our friends. They have a play-by-post Lancer game.
Yeah.
From what I know, a chunk of the way it's extended is by making the missions not like a one session like sortie. It is like extended out. So like you're in your mech not just for the battle, you're like exploring an environment in your mech. You're going through like a lot of different scenarios. And like I feel like I would chafe if I didn't know the GM and know if they were good at that style. But if they said like, if I trusted them and they were like, hey, we're gonna make like a longer Lancer game, I'd be like, okay, because it's you. It's just Lancer extends itself better to a shorter like mission by mission kind of style, with like its progression system and all that. But if it's got the right people, I feel like it can work. But the key word there is right people.
Yeah, well,
I think there's an art to tabletop pacing.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's also just the aspect of as well. That's just role playing for the love of role play, you know?
Yeah.
Like that's just this is a narrative group, and they love just telling the story together, and that's fine. And like we definitely have had games like that prior, where it was more about the relationships between the characters and the bonds and everything like that. And it's definitely something that I could get into to some degree, but for a lot of the slower sessions that we ended up running, I feel like sometimes the lack of action subconsciously starts wearing away at people, to the point of like it can be hard to get people together because there's not a lot of like excitement. And it's just like, if you aren't in your current character arc moment where you're having a lot of screen time, it might feel a little rough unless you like prefer observing.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like a lot of those sessions ended for us anyway was just like there wasn't enough incentive to keep people coming back, because like a lot of that happened in Anima, for instance.
Yeah.
And Anima is a fun game, but the character progression slows down pretty dramatically after a certain point, just because a level 10 character in Anima is a level 20 character in any other game. So, like, that means essentially you get half the relative progression rate that other games have, because each upgrade usually is more potent. Maybe if you build your character well, and that's another thing that is a problem with Anima in general. But
yeah, I like, quite honestly, I'm thinking about it, really mulling of like good tabletop pacing. I honestly think my favorite pace of games we've ran, like the best example I can point at it is the Monster of the Week game we did. Cause like I feel like we ended at a point where it felt like the story was ending.
mm-hmm.
And like we naturally wrapped it up, and we also were like noting out of game, like, okay, we should get this done like sooner rather than later, because we're very quickly getting to the point where the system won't allow us to progress further.
Yeah.
So like we should end it here. So like I think that game lasted for like what, 5-6 months?
Yeah, something like that.
Like
Hey,
that feels perfect for me. Like I like it. I like short 10 sessioners, with the caveat of, if we're cooking, we should extend it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I like that system a lot, especially for testing out other games. Do not lock me down for a game I've never played for a year. I ain't doing that shit. For 10 sessions, easy. But like, yeah, that's I think it really depends, but I think for like, once the game is going on for a long time, even like progression notwithstanding, I think a really slow paced game lends itself too much to the threat of becoming an obligation.
Yeah.
And once it becomes to that point, it becomes something that like, okay, every week we have to do this thing. And that's when I think people start swaying a bit and stop like kind of attending, and or have reasons that do pop up. Because there's sometimes you have those reasons are legitimate, and you have a really bad string of like legitimate reasons. Sometimes you probably could have pulled through and like pulled it together for the game, and just didn't feel like it.
Yeah.
I think that's what slow paced games are the danger of. Even if you have like really good progression, I think it can still hit of like year 2. You're like, yep, my whatever day of the week has been eaten up for 2 years. So I more and more am like, a lot of tabletop games cannot do it. Maybe 1, at most 2. I would like to only have 1. It's like I just have other shit I gotta do.
Yeah. I mean, because I've played in games of all varieties of length at this point.
Yeah.
And the ones that peter out usually are, there's not enough drive for the players to like come back, because it's like we're doing mostly story stuff. Some players are just not as active in whatever narrative is currently going on. Hey Chase, how you doing? And or it's like, because the whole point of a TTRPG is it's a narrative game, right? And I love narratives. I love telling stories. It's what I've based my life on pretty much at this point. But I need game like dopamine, right? I need the game to tell me, hey, if you come and play, this cool thing will happen. You know, you get to do this interesting thing, mechanically speaking, or you get to add to your character this mechanical thing that you've been looking for. And like for the 333, one of our players anyway is super hooked on the game. And that's because he's looking into the occultism and supernatural stuff. And his character has also just a very interesting story right now. He's also very at risk of dying any session. But like his games are interesting.
Cause yeah, I am waiting with bated breath for combat to happen with 333. Cause like right? I also am like, man, I can't wait for the game dopamine. So far, it's been rolling a dice. Did I succeed? But I need like the combat. I need the like, give me a fight. Give me some tactical decisions to make.
Yeah.
I need that juice. Which, granted, you have planned. We stalled it.
Yeah.
Like, it's our fault. So
this last session was not my fault. Y'all decided to turn he's asleep for a day into kidnapping and drugging him up.
I mean,
then he goes and gets hit by a car. So funny. Also, hi, Knock. You didn't say hi first. You just said love you, which I don't know how to reciprocate, so. Also, funny enough, I was thinking about it as well. You unlocked the black market last session with your contact, right?
I did.
You can get a shotgun now.
Oh, illegal guns.
Yeah. So think about that, because
I'll think about it.
The black market has just opened some doors.
I do want my character to be a teleporting man with a shotgun, which is like close range. I don't have to approach you. Just teleports right next to you.
Yeah, your character's terrifying in the combat system.
Yeah, I'm excited for that.
So it's something that
I also am wondering, because it's I got reminded of this aspect because I've been playing Oblivion. Mm-hmm. This will become relevant, trust me.
Sure.
I don't know how many people, you specifically in the chat, have done the Shivering Isles DLC for that game. I hope people have, because that DLC is fantastic. But do you know what happens if you try to attack Sheogorath in the Shivering Isles?
Yeah, he paralyzes you and then teleports you high above the city, or high above the world. I don't even think it's the city.
There's a shrine of punishment that you land on that's just full of corpses. But actually, in lore, you're not falling. He teleports you into the air and then throws the Shivering Isles at you. That's
interesting.
Yeah, and like the game just cannot express that, because like how? But apparently, like there was a write-up that's what was happening, and I'm picturing doing that, and I'm like, ooh, could I make that effect with travel? And I'm so morbidly curious.
Yeah, I mean, it's theoretically possible, I can say. The game starts getting weird later when you guys have higher ascensions.
I know there was the one ascension offshoot that was saying, like, I could basically shift us to, like, a new location. And I'm picturing doing that downward.
Yeah.
Or upward. I'm just, like, I'm just picturing it, like, I don't fall. Like, I walk off the skyscraper, and then I just move the world up so fast that, like, I take a step, and I'm suddenly at the bottom floor.
It's an interesting way of thinking about it.
Yeah, like, it's mind-bending physics, which I actually do like planning out. I think it's really interesting to do.
Yeah, well, you know, oh, you weren't there. So the statuette that Booter has, if you survive the trial, which is hard because we're seeing how it's fucking him up.
Yeah,
you will go to your next level of ascension.
Oh, gimme.
So yeah, once he figures it out, y'all can decide if you want to go through the trial or not.
Kind of do.
Because there's a good chance it will just kill you.
Well, you know, sometimes things happen.
We'll see if Booter's character survives. Because it's dangerous for a reason. So
yeah. I mean, he keeps talking about that you won't kill him, so this is the time.
I know. But yeah, so like a slow burn TTRPG, like I think it needs a variety of factors. I think the game world needs to be interesting enough for the players to invest and immerse, first of all. I think that's mandatory for a slow burn. Like, oh, you know what another actual slow burn game is? Vampire.
Yeah, that's very true. its progression system lends itself really well to slower games because like if you want to play a powerful character, you gotta like play the game. And like, yeah, that's a good point. The World of Darkness games already being very roleplay heavy. I feel like in their
Yeah.
intent, that's lends itself really well. I think that's how you like design a game that feels like you're constantly growing to like and progressing because you get to freely add points to your shit.
Right.
Just I'm curious. How about Deadlands? Because I explained the XP system to a friend of mine who he's in a Pathfinder game actually. In a Pathfinder game, it's a Weird West, and like the stuff he was describing, I was like, I think you'd fuck with Deadlands, my man. Like, you're describing Deadlands. Does that XP system lend itself to like a longer game?
Yes. I would say in theory it could. The problem with Deadlands in the same regard, I think, again, is like the world setting. Because, like, you're in cowboy times. You're in, like, early 1800s America.
Yeah.
So when there's nothing to do around, there's literally nothing to do around. There's no, like, insane politics or anything unless you're in like a bigger town. And one of the biggest ways you gain XP in that game is by beating monsters, or your particular disadvantages get in the way of progress in the session. Like if your disadvantage is negative enough, it will give you XP essentially. But you only gain chips typically when you do certain like mission-based things, or you kill monsters, typically.
Yeah.
So
okay, that makes sense a bit.
In theory, it could, but it plays very similar to like D&D, where like progression really just comes from fighting and doing a lot of things.
It's just like I'm thinking, because with that World of Darkness point, it's like games with more self-propelled progression lend itself really well to it.
Yeah.
I think it incentivizes you to like play, and like leveling up can theoretically happen really often if you just have the XP gain and then you're putting it in the right things. It gives you like a focus that you're directly looking at of like, I'm gonna bump this up to like this and get this ability, rather than like, oh boy, when that jackpot hits, when I get the big win.
Yeah.
There's just a different vibe.
Yeah. Well, and like when I say like vampire as well, vampire specifically, like politics is huge when it comes to vampire.
Yeah.
It necessitates it. And I guess technically mage as well. Werewolf, less so. But you could still have a lot of politics in werewolf if you really wanted to.
A large chunk of the inner story is like kind of when politics start to fail because like you're just too angry, too pissed, too acting. And then the politics often are lending to like, no, sorry, Wolfman, this change doesn't happen with like quick violence. You have to actually fundamentally change it. Yeah, like tribal politics can hit. I don't know how you'd be doing politics with like Pentex and shit.
Right. So, like, I think there are games, and I think there are games that work, and I think it's just like the setting in the world has to really lean itself to it. So like politics has to matter. In games like Pathfinder and D&D, politics almost never come up unless that's the story you're in, right? Because you're vagabonds, you're vagrants. You don't live anywhere. You just go places and do things.
I'm not gonna talk to the pack of zombies or whatever. I'm gonna punch them in the face.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and the whole craft of being an adventurer is go out into monster-filled territory and come back with treasure. That's like how you live. So, like, again, and this is nothing, and I'm using these negative examples more to show a contrast than I am to say there's anything wrong with that. I think not playing a slow burn game is equally valid, if not more valid, in the long run, because, again, we play these games for the game part as much as the story. And I love Pathfinder's like builds and combat and all kinds of stuff. And it can be fun to try different, like, how do I role play with this kind of build for characters? Like, how do I role play with my mutagenist alchemist? Because that'll be very different than like playing a psychic.
Yeah, like what type of person are they? What kind of person has this ability?
But like for a slow burn TTRPG, I think they can be really good, and honestly probably have the highest potential to be like a really, really good game. But I do think there's a lot of fail points that can happen in slow burns. Like, the story needs to be gripping enough to keep your players coming back. The game system has to reward the slower pace in a way that feels good.
There's a lot of like moving parts to it. It's the reason why I say, like, I think game pacing is an art and like a skill to learn. It's like you can have games that have their little points, you can have games that have it, and I think it takes a good like eye for it, for a GM to know when to speed up and know when to slow down. And sometimes like you can get out of the hump, you have to actually like step in and do something. Or sometimes you gotta know when it's appropriate to slow down your game's pace, to like allow for something to happen that the players are locked in on. Because you could have, like, last session been like, nah, we already hand-waved this. We don't have to do this part. And I think doing so would have made for a more boring session.
Yeah, potentially.
Just because, like, it's that it never feels great to step in or have, like, your shit kind of, like, interrupted.
Right.
It's just like, no, you guys can't go down this route. I know you're role-playing it out, but you can't do it.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel great. So it's knowing when to do something.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, you mentioned that Friday game that you were in, and that game I know definitely has a lot of just like no dice sessions, and yet everyone keeps coming back, So
a lot of times it can be carried hard by like your group, because it's when you get a bunch of people who like just talking in character.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, it becomes a yap session, and everyone gets moments to yap. It also is carried because I think Q is really good at making sure every single person has a thing. So like, because you hit it on the head of like, yeah, you have games and like they're really long-winded RP games, and you're gonna have down like off time, and you're just gonna like your character's not gonna do much. And in those games, like. You could have those, but the way you would have those kind of down sessions where you didn't do anything is really specific plot stuff happening, or you are actively not doing, like, participating in something, when Q is actively, like, going around making sure everybody has a thing to do.
Yeah.
And that's an element to, like, patch it yourself. I would not say D&D lends itself to a long system, like a long game, but like you can. It's just there's a lot of other factors you have to like hit.
Yeah, well, and that was kind of the point I was getting to, was that game is a D&D game.
Yeah.
Which in no way does D&D even like remotely reward downtime.
Really not at all.
So like, and again, that's just a prime example of D&D is a really good game when you're really good at making D&D a good game.
Yeah.
That's the magic sauce when it comes to D&D. It's not the game, it's the players. And well, I love that I love the idea of that doesn't have to be that way, and you can just play a better game. So,
yeah.
Because just imagine doing that, but in Pathfinder, right? Like, you can just do the same thing, just in Pathfinder.
Yeah, and like, I also know because I remember you've mentioned that Q is like looking into Pathfinder stuff when D&D 2024 happens. But like, when it's homebrewed to the point where it's unrecognizable, you're like, yeah, this is kind of D&D, and then this other person's game, which they could have extended out because at least Q did make it so like there were alternate progression systems that gave us stuff, and it was like, okay, this is cool. Still, it was D&D very slow XP. We kept joking about how we never level up. It's like, it's just, if you run a game for that long, eventually it gets high level, and eventually the high levels can't really keep throwing your players that, because if they get to like 20, it's a bit of a problem.
Yeah, which is something I'm super excited about the 333 for, because scaling is just the name of the game. The game just changes as you get more and more powerful equivalently, and there's different, like, the 333 almost has like a tier system in a way, just more organic and less like arbitrary.
Yeah,
because for instance, like, once you ascend past the 5th ascendancy, almost none of your skills will matter anymore because you are just now a godlike entity. So that's just another tier. But if you stayed at tier 5, there's a lot of things you can still do, and the game's not designed for you to get to max ascendancy necessarily. Ascendancies are fun, and I think like the ideal game exists between ascendancies 3 and 5. But the game doesn't force you to, and you can have exactly the kind of experience you want, because there's forms of progression outside of ascendancy. And ascendancy is so difficult that it's not something that just easily comes along. It's almost milestone, but not quite.
Mm-hmm.
And because in the setting, there's literally any kind of story. If you want to play a low ascendancy, even a no ascendancy game, I think the game supports that just as well.
I would say so. Like, you're going to be constantly looking at the cool power stuff, because that's where, like, a lot of the methods of getting around effects and, like, challenges without, you know, hunkering in your apartment and boosting your stats.
Right.
But, like, you could even run, like, a game where there's an arc without ascendancies, and then, like, they ascend during the game.
Yeah. Because, like, also all the ascendancies just aren't balanced in a normal way. Like, your teleporting power is very, very powerful. It's probably the most powerful ability currently in the game.
Yep.
Because literally you can get around cover, you can move without spending actions, and you could do it theoretically as much as you have narrative points for. And you can move after attacking someone. So, like,
I am excited to see it in effect, because yeah, I'm gonna become nasty, and I'm gonna use it in a lot of fun ways.
Which, you know, like, to be fair, it's something that you have to watch your narrative point expenditure, because that's going to be your overall limit on how your ability is going to work. And some of the other ones, like Booters does nothing in combat.
That's true. It's very useful utility-wise if we're doing shady shit.
But when you guys get to higher, like when you get to your first evolution, things will change, and some like Booter's power could not always, but could become very, very nasty in combat as well. But the whole point of it is, like, you guys are more than human. Right now, an ascended, even the first level of ascendancy, a character is really, really scary to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
But you could still be killed by a gun, typically. Maybe it takes a few shots with some of the characters, like Slug's character or Devin's character. But most of you can be dealt with a gun in a relatively easy enough fashion.
Oh yeah, I can get like immediately capped. I am just a fella, but it's just I can teleport. That's like my one thing that keeps me maybe alive.
Well, yeah, you can teleport, and it's just the infinite speed problem in some games where it's just like, if a character can attack you and then get to a place where you can't attack them, then how do you deal with that kind of scenario? This game doesn't quite have that problem because of how reactions overall work, but your character's still going to be super nasty. So, like, it's going to be interesting to see. And I'm sorry that, like, most of these table talks, there's just a good portion of, here's the 333 bit that we're doing here. But the 333 is just a really fun opportunity for me to really put my tabletop theory to, like, the test. To see, like, am I knowledgeable enough about tabletop to break it down and represent it in a game that is overall better designed with the fact that tabletop has existed for a while. I've been doing it for a while, and like we just haven't evolved past the current frameworks for TTRPGs, for instance. And that's not even to say that this style of game would be better than all other forms, because we had a discussion about this before too. There needs to be genres in TTRPGs at all, really.
Like, there needs to be games that you can't just run the same game with a different coat of paint every time.
Yeah, you can't just do D&D for everything.
Yeah, mechanics do lend themselves to genre.
Yeah. And just this last session was making me really think, like, I don't think a lot of this would be happening if this was a different style of game. Like, or at least not so naturally. Like, the connections y'all have with your NPC bonds or whatever, I think are interesting and fun and are something that are mechanically rewarding enough while also having the pure fun of just having interesting narrative moments in addition to it.
Yeah, there's just a lot of, like, things to invest in, and all, like, just there's a lot of chances to do role play stuff. And, like, once I'm curious to see how the game flow will change once, like, the plot gets really cooking. Like, that's where I'm at right now. Like, because we're in that slow burn period, but like,
Yeah.
what's gonna happen when we get out of the slow burn?
Yeah. I'll say, as long as not a lot of crazy narrative stuff happens this next point or next session, or a lot of roleplay stuff, there will be some pressure put on you guys by the story that should start moving things forward. Because some things have been set in motion, and our clock is going to be put on the table here soon. So, which will be interesting. And when it happens, I think you guys will be like, oh, and a lot of things will start making sense. So I'm excited for that. I was excited for that. I didn't think we were not going to get through the month that we just started when we started the session.
Yeah.
We got like through 3 additional weeks, I think, of the actual month that you guys started in, which was not what I was expecting. But again, it was super funny because Booter's character just got utterly shit cans, narratively speaking.
That he did.
And and like literally speaking, because he did just get injected with a bunch of drugs and then hit by a car.
Sometimes life hits you fast.
Yeah, sometimes at 35 miles per hour.
Exactly.
So, like, it was fun. It was fun. I really, really enjoyed it. But I have been intending for combat because I want you to see the combat, and I also want to see how the combat works now that I'm using Ascended people, because we ran the combat before, and it feels good, but we only did it with like 2 people and 2 NPCs. So I'm wondering how 5 people and who knows how many NPCs will make the combat feel.
I think, yeah, there's always going to be the difference of like more players, more people interacting with it. It's a better feel for how it's going to be more realistically.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
And yeah, now you know you can get a gun.
Thank God.
Bigger gun.
I think I have the money for it. I got like Wealth 2 right now.
I thought you were well 3.
I got my wealth increased, and I can get wealth 3 if I take a thing in larceny, because there's a larceny one that increases your wealth. So that might only be to a max of 2.
Yeah, I think it is to a max. I do believe you started at wealth 3, if I'm correct, because a shotgun's gonna cost you wealth 3 to get.
Yeah.
So
I will figure it out. I'll get myself a shotgun.
But I'm excited, and also we get to deal with the shotgun, which has very interesting stats, because a shotgun deals 50 damage. Which, by the way, in order to kill a person, typically you need, what is it? Yeah, 30 damage. So, it's a very powerful weapon.
I'll have a great time with it then.
I'm sure you will. I'm excited, but yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I don't think there's really much more to talk about when it comes to slow burn TTRPGs, because everything else is like, mechanically speaking, I think we've narrowed down that like a slow burn TTRPG needs some form of like micro progression, you know. Like you need to either earn experience points like you can like in Vampire that you can spend when you get enough, or you need like with a 333 does, where you can spend weeks to like improve stats essentially.
Yeah. There needs to be something like that.
And I do think it needs a world and a setting that rewards slower pacing, because again, like Vampire really good because politics is a huge part of that setting. Pathfinder and D&D, they are there theoretically, but you're playing an adventurer, and so the expectation is go out and kill shit. You know, like
progression
the game
is tied to doing stuff like killing.
Well, yeah, kill shit, look in dungeons, find treasure, you know. Like, that's just the idea of what an adventurer is, you know. At the end of the day, the fun thing about a TTRPG is you can just play however you want. But
yeah,
what the game is designed for leans in that direction.
Yeah, it's why it was mentioned in chat. Like, I do always love the XP for situation, not like the fighting.
Yeah.
Because like, if you avoid combat, like like steps are made to get around a combat, and it's like worth it. I feel like that should be rewarded in some way. I don't like it in video games where like there are some RPGs you can play where like, yeah, if you like do charisma builds, which I often do, you are actually losing XP. And I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Also, Edge of the Empire shout out. That game is very good.
Yeah, I was like, oh, Alex is gonna like that one.
It's so good.
I agree. It was a really good one. I've played a little bit of it. A little bit, itty bitty bit, but I did like it. But yeah, so like the setting, the game system has to really lend itself to it. But I think more than those elements even, you need a GM who's good at world building and good at like setting the pacing, and you need players who enjoy yapping at each other.
Yeah.
So like those are some pretty serious points that like not everyone is going to have access to. And so I do think, generally speaking, the standard style TTRPGs are more foolproof and are better if you're just there to have a good time than like a nice slow burn. But like, and this is, actually this is a very interesting part of this overall conversation, right? Because the reason why you're role playing, I think, really matters at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why are you coming to role play in the first place? Like, what is your aim and your goal? Because for me, I like TTRPGs because it's a unique experience that you can only get like through TTRPGs. Like making your own story, telling your own story with your own character, and essentially recreating what you see in media. Like you have a favorite video game, favorite movie, favorite book, or whatever. You now get to be that protagonist. And I think that's super cool and super unique. And you just can't find that anywhere else because Well, I mean, you can't really design a video game that can account for every little thing your character could do or how you would do it. And you can't really immerse in a video game character as much as you can in like a TTRPG. Because you just don't get the freedom to just do literally whatever you want, you know?
Yeah. Like, it's a fun point because I was thinking about it. Like that question of why do you come to the game? Why do you role play? And it kind of also can hit what can be a friction point for pacing for a lot of people of like, why do you come to play? Are you there to role play because it's part of the game? Or are you there to role play because it is the game to you?
Yeah.
That's the thing for me. I do feel like there's a large chunk from in my head that like, oh yeah, role playing is the game. Like that's a large chunk of it. I want there to be a real game, so it's not just us sitting at a table telling a story. I find that boring.
Yeah.
But like, there has to be the tangible thing to interact with, plus role playing, and that's when I care. And like, it's a sliding scale. I feel for how like what your percentage mix is. Like, do you want a 40% game, 60% role play? Like, what is your scale hit? And everyone's gonna land differently. And that's a chunk of the reason I think there are people who just don't work at certain tables because like sometimes you want 90% game, 10% story, like role play, and another person wants like the literal opposite of that. They're not going to enjoy each other's tables.
Yeah. Also, hi, Gwe. Yeah, I mean, this is why my narrative gamer scale exists. Like, where does each game sit on that scale, and also, like, more importantly, where does each player sit at that scale? Because I feel like if you find a game that aligns with you on the narrative gamer scale, that's going to be a game you're going to enjoy more overall.
Yeah.
And you know, as well, like, I think it's equally as valid as I just want to come and play a game with my friends and have silly roleplay. Because roleplay being in the game can mean different things. Like, some people want to be immersed. Other people want to have Florbo the Goblin do really dumb shit every session. You know, very Legends of Adventures kind of stuff.
You want the, like, communal, like, kind of... I always view it as, like, you want the improv comedy game.
Yeah.
Everything is a prompt.
Yeah, and while I definitely think those games could be fun, that's not why I like tabletop. And so, whether or not I could enjoy a game like that, I think would be... I could enjoy it for, like, a handful of sessions, maybe. Unless it's been a really good time and it's just been laughs every session. You know?
Yeah, there is like the inherent difference of we are playing a game that is goofy, not serious, funny, haha, to having fun with your friends, therefore the time is goofy, fun, haha. It's like, you can have a serious story while yucking it up at the table. Like, it works perfectly fine. There's the degree of separation you can make. And also, I hope you're having a fun time laughing and goofing with your friends.
Right.
Like, you should be enjoying, like, your time with your buddies. I always like the balance of making something have comedic elements without like hurting the tone, because like, I think a serious thing needs it. Like, you can have something serious, but you gotta have a blend of genres. It's something you learn pretty early on in any form of like storytelling experience or education, is like, it's the reason the A plot and the B plot have to be different genres in like a show. You can't have two comedic stories happening at the same time.
Yeah.
Like pure comedy. There has to be other elements in there, and they have to be like different.
I feel that, Gray. I do. Yeah, well, you know, it's like your anima game, for instance, right? The game with Ass Blaster.
Oh yeah.
What was his name?
Arthur.
Arthur. Yes, Arthur. There it is. Because the Ass Blaster moment was super funny in what was overall a generally serious game.
And like, I made Arthur also like comedic in a lot of elements because he's just stupid. Like
Yeah.
he's not like like I know of cheese.
Yeah.
Uh like he's got a lot of elements where like that's kind of the story you tell with a character like that, I feel, of like this guy is a savant at like one thing. Like, or I guess two things. It's key and combat. Those are the two things
Right.
he understands masterfully. Basic living, not in the slightest. He has no general knowledge, and he gets like he just gets confused easily. And I always like those characters. I like the characters where it's the there's the trope. It's crouching tiger, a hidden badass.
Yeah.
Yeah, or crouching dumbass, a hidden badass, or something like that. But it's that element of like you gotta have a character, you gotta add the dichotomy, the little trait that makes them interesting. And he was a very like I think kind of I find him overall depressing.
Yeah.
I find because his entire story is the like I'm gonna go on revenge. I've heard all of the explanations of why it's self-destructive. I don't care. I'm dying on this adventure. It's just a matter of when. Like I had it fully planned that whenever Arthur popped up again, he was going to be like stitched together because Key is holding him together. He's like not a lot of flesh left.
Yeah.
And he's just waiting for the moment to die, and he has the like the attack at the like I've made of I will sacrifice myself in a climactic moment. The moment I think I'm gonna die, I'm taking whatever we're fighting with me.
Yeah.
And like that's a fun story, but also he doesn't understand where wine comes from. He doesn't get why grapes are alcoholic.
Yeah, and so it's like I agree. And that's something that like you could even do in reverse. You could have a very silly game that eventually becomes very serious, like Adventure Time.
Adventure Zone.
Adventure Zone, right, yeah.
There's some major beats in there that just kind of hit.
And so it's like I love tabletop because a lot of this conversation isn't really just about like necessarily boiling it down, because does a slow burn game, like whether it's good or bad, does that matter? Because in the end of the day, it's going to just depend on your group regardless. And like what elements work in a slow burn game might not even be the points that you particularly like about it or caused it to happen in your own game.
Yeah.
Like you could just be someone who just loves telling story for the sake of telling story, and you have no need for any kind of slow progression or like game incentive to just start yapping about story stuff. You just want to get in character and just live in the moment. And I think that's completely fine and completely valid.
Completely agree.
But I don't think that's the average, and I do think like there's value in having the conversation, because like tabletop is such an infuriating genre when it comes to being someone like me who's very invested, because having a conversation at all, especially over just text, is sometimes you're just not speaking the same language as someone else when you're talking about things in a game.
Yeah.
Like, a couple, or was it last Table Talk or the Table Talk before, where the conversation of like min-maxing comes in. Some people speak on it as only like, yeah, I want my character to be good. Why would I do anything otherwise? But those very same people will make a character and make choices that fit that idea for that character over what is optimal, right? Like, unless you're someone who only plays the most optimal build in a game, you're not really a true min-maxer. But at the same time, a lot of people like to look through that lens of the true min-maxer. Why take a thing if a better thing exists, kind of stuff.
Yeah.
When in actuality, that's not how they play. But when you like dissect the thing, it gives them a perspective that's very different than how they normally would play the game.
It's always, I think, most like civil discussions start like turning, because it's just people will always have the a communication thing. Someone has a perfect idea of what they're saying in their head, and like they're like, what, why doesn't anyone understand this? Like, what's the point I'm making? And then another person has just a different idea of what you just said,
right?
And like, just it's the funny aspect of language. Words can mean multiple things. Another person, the way they hear it, it's then built up of context of like, someone makes an argument meaning something a lot more nuanced. All they can think of is the last person they saw who meant it in the more like hyperbolic, extreme way.
Yeah.
Like, it always lands in so many different camps. So I like learning how to communicate ideas is a very important skill.
Yeah, and that's the hard thing when it comes to like, let's talk about like Pathfinder specifically, right? Pathfinder is such a wonderful game that is a game designed where you can play a character almost any way you want, you know, and have relative level of success. The game is designed to keep your character within the same ballpark of whatever challenges you should be coming across, you know, unless you're intentionally giving your character, like, as long as you're making a character rationally around the idea of what your character should be, then you should be fine. But then, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's like, yeah, you have to try. It's the reason I keep like really.
And I will make the video someday.
I want it. I want to see it.
I know. But then, out of the woodwork, anytime you're talking about literally anything in that game, you get people saying, "This isn't optimal. this is bad." Like, people, like, it's to a point where a class gets a feat that's just worse than a feat that another class gets earlier, and they're like, this feat is bad. And it's like, no, you don't understand the context of when you would use or get this feat. You're getting this feat from a class that doesn't normally have access to this type of power.
Instead of like the weird multi-class you could make to get access to the thing you want to do. Now there's a way you can do it that has less like trial with it.
Yeah, and it is just like, it's less overall like expenditure of feats and levels and stuff to get the thing. Like, is it as good? No, but that's not the point. The point is it's allowing a character to gain features that they normally wouldn't gain, to give them more diversity in certain kinds of actions or whatever. And so it makes talking about archetypes or new classes so utterly infuriating because people don't look at the context of how a feat comes about in a kit. They only look at, is there another feat in the game that is like this or better?
Yeah, it's immediately comparing it to like something different, when a lot of times the comparison just isn't good. The reason you should make the comparison, I mean, I completely agree. I am not a fan of Pathfinder discourse.
Yeah, and like, it makes it hard for me as someone who's like made their channel predominantly on Pathfinder content, because there's no way around it. You can't force people to come to the conversation with context. And even if you provide said context, that doesn't mean the person is going to take that in consideration for how they view the rest of the conversation, right?
Yeah.
You can't force them to have a certain viewpoint. So, because like, for instance, the whole debacle with the exemplars like multi-class archetype, because the exemplars multi-class archetype is actually really, really strong.
It's very strong.
It's just really powerful. But when you get people talking about it in any context, they either are in like one of two camps predominantly. Either one, this is so powerful that like if I'm mid-maxing, I should always take this. Or two, my character doesn't have to take this because maybe my character isn't interested in these types of things. You know, like my character isn't becoming a demigod, so why would I have these powers? And both of which ignore the point of the conversation in general.
That you can just point at something and be like, that's pretty strong.
Yeah.
And like, I don't even remember, because like I think the one thing that we've hit in the conversation of it is like, man, that should have like uncommon or rare on it or something. Because the story is that you're a demigod, that should be rare. And that makes sense if it was like an uncommon thing your GM would sign off on, because that's a big leap for your character.
Right.
You have a part, like something divine with you, and like that I feel like is a fair like balance discussion. You know.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
it falls apart.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I had some ways I would have done it better, but like again, like a lot of the way even I was approaching it was just, here's a number balance thing. You know, it wasn't very narratively focused. It was just I think this is really, really strong. And if, like, for instance, I was playing a build and I'm like playing Automators, right? And I want to add a little bit more combat oomph to my kit, then why would I pick Fighter when I have Exemplar? Because Exemplar just gives me an overall more powerful mechanic than going into Fighter would.
Yeah.
And even that perspective is like, okay, my point is to do damage with a weapon or something. And like, is that wrong? Is it wrong that a character wanting to use a weapon better would choose something over like Fighter, which that's their whole thing, right? And it's like, well, I think there's different ways you can approach it, and there's different levels of access. Like, is the Exemplar thing strong? Yes, but does Exemplar have any other additional feats or anything that like give you more combat capability? Not as much as Fighter.
Yeah, no.
But would I do more damage with Exemplar? Probably. So that's like, it's an interesting conversation to have, but overall it ignores like the main point of TTRPGs anyway, which is, does this serve the story for my character? Because in all honesty, even if the Exemplar option is better, it's going to be only marginally better where you are killing things marginally faster. That's it.
Yeah, like, oh man, you like an enemy died a turn earlier than they might have.
Yeah, you know, that's also another weird thing about TTRPGs that I find really strange that people like to talk about. Why is killing monsters faster better?
Mainly it's the fact that removal means less likely of you both expending a resource and having resources expended by dealing with it. One of the main resources being health. Like, it's just less likely for you to die if something is dead faster.
Yeah. And like, while I understand that at a very base mechanical level, the point of like a combat system is to make combat fun and interesting.
Yeah.
Would a game be more fun if you could kill a monster instantly?
No. I think where a line comes in, and the element of it that can be very entertaining though is working a system that is inherently very strategic and kind of slower pace and deliberate, and finding a way that insta kills something. Like I've worked to the point where now this is super effective and something dies very fast. I think that's where a lot of it comes into. It's the journey, not the destination.
Right. And while I definitely think that can be fun in the way of like, you know, hey, it's fun, I found this thing in this game. How many times can you do that before it gets boring?
No, yeah, exactly. As like, I'm gonna say, like, I want, if I can get to that point, hell yeah, because like, if you're making something effective, the journey there is going to be effective and fun.
Yeah.
Once I get to that end state, I want like maybe 2-3 more combats like to play with it, but at some point I'm gonna get tired of it. So like, that's the end. It's the end I want to get to. I disagree with people on the pacing of like making something broken. If you can make something broken, pace it to like the end of the game, because then it also makes narrative sense and it can hit a lot like better. It's not gonna feel as bad because like you also like something I've done, make something very broken, trivialize everyone else's combat, and you do just feel bad. It might not be your fault, but I still felt bad.
Yeah.
Because I want everyone to have fun with like what they made. Those elements build onto it. I do understand the like desire to make something as effective, kill things real fast, because like it is fun to like lab it out, work it out, and then see it effective. It has to not hit the end state like halfway through the game. It's got to do like the last arc. That's when you finally get the thing that puts it together.
Yeah, and to be fair, in Pathfinder, that's just not a thing that really exists typically.
Nope.
So like it makes the conversation more silly because it's like, oh, we finished the combat sooner. It's like, okay. And that makes it so we're less likely to die and we can get through the rest of the dungeon easier. It's like, okay, sure. I can understand the reason behind that, but first of all, is that necessary? Is it necessary that you do this in order to beat the dungeon? Is character death meaningful to you only because it's something that is a failure of your build? Or is there a narrative point to it that you can get out of it? Because I don't think character death is inherently even a negative thing. It can be meaningful. It can have a lot of story. And also, this is a random chance game. It's an RNG game where sometimes, even if you do build very well, the dice just suck and you just die anyway. In which case, your super powerful build really didn't add anything to the story. So
yeah.
That's why I keep coming back to this idea that like power gaming doesn't serve tabletop, or min-maxing doesn't serve. I like optimizing. I think you should build your character to be the best form of that character. But I don't think that inherently or even should regularly mean you're picking the most optimal things. You're just picking the most optimal things for that character.
The other way I can think of it for having like why you would make it so like, oh yeah, faster combat. I'm like, if I have the option with like good gameplay, like I make good decisions, I roll good, my build is good, where I turn a possible like 4-hour combat, it's gonna be all day, to where we now have like a 3-hour combat. I'm gonna be satisfied with that. And like that, because it means we get more of the game in a day.
Right.
Like we get more to interact, because there's the days where you're like, oh, we just did combat. And you're like, yeah, we did a combat. Sometimes it goes on for too long for people, and it's just like, okay, like yawn. I don't have anything to do for a while. And so if good gameplay makes it go faster, that's where I hit it in my head of like the most accurate, true answer to that question. Of I'm like, I gotta play the game more.
Yeah, and again, like if you want to make a character who's good in combat, I think you definitely should do so.
I usually do.
It's more of does that mean though you're only picking optimal options? Because I guarantee making a character who's good in combat is not necessarily picking the most optimal things.
No. Like there's always the push and pull of it.
Yeah, it's like, did you pick the most optimal class? Did you take the most optimal subclass? Did you spend all your character's money to get you the items, as quickly as you could, There's a lot of things where I don't think people really understand what min-maxing versus like optimization is, or the difference between optimization for like a combat character is different than optimization to have the best combat character. Because a lot of optimization conversations revolve around the best combat character, like the one who does the ultimate amount of damage you can do in the game and everything like that. And like, I know you like making combat characters, but I know you also don't pick boring choices for it.
It's got to make sense why he would have it, because like I will
Right.
never do the dwarven like switch flick mace or whatever. That's boring if like I'm just picking the same weapon every time. I would do it once if I thought of a good reason. I would have that as like a maybe a gnome, person with gnome heritage. I'd have a reason.
Right.
The weapon is objectively fun and cool, like before it got nerfed, but like the most deserved nerf ever. Like there's that difference you gotta find.
Yeah.
And it's finding the angle, because like I think the most inoptimal character I have built is my character that is straight up my attempt of making a Belmont, because like I'm using a whip, which is already not a great weapon.
Yeah.
Like it has a lot of cool options, but like the damage dice is real low, and I'm building it and I'm like, there are objectively cool things this character can do. They are not as effective in combat as like my fake fighter wizard, my upcoming exemplar. Like they are not going to be as good, but I think they have more options to pull from in a combat that makes them fun and interesting. It's just, you know, damage isn't everything, like as we always like to say.
Right. See, and that's the thing, like that's the thing I like to do. I like to optimize fun in combat. What's the funnest way I can approach a combat situation? Like, yeah, I don't want to make a character who hits like a wet noodle, because that's not fun. But
Yeah.
I want to do combat in interesting ways. I want to try new kinds of strategies or stuff like that. And I just don't want to make another, you know, like straight up like mauler, or, you know, a fighter mauler build, you know, whose whole point is hit the enemy hard, put them on the ground, and then force them to get opportunity attack so you can hit them again really, really hard, you know.
After my second build where I picked Mauler, I intentionally started to avoid it. Because it's just, I don't like using the common option a lot of times.
Yeah, right.
But the other aspect of it is sometimes Pathfinder has a lot of archetypes, and sometimes what you're trying to do doesn't have an archetype that fits it, and you need a general archetype that works.
Yeah.
That's always the struggle you make. Like I've made it so many times with that specific archetype.
So, you know, it's a thing where like it's so frustrating having these kind of conversations with people in general, because we get arguments, like I heard all of the time, of why would I choose a bad option? And it's like, that's not the context of this of the conversation we're having right now. You're already choosing bad options.
It's the difference of like, you are making options for the sake of the character that still is effective. It's not you looking at a feat being like, that's garbage, and then you take it.
Right. Yeah. It's like, I'm not saying make bad characters. Why would I say to people, make bad characters? We were having the conversation the other stream past of like, if Technomancer was just a better wizard, then why pick wizard? It's like, well, what if I don't want to play a Technomancer? That's my argument, is the character I'm making a wizard or a Technomancer? It doesn't matter if Technomancer does magic better than wizard. That's not the point of the game. I want to make a wizard, you know?
Yeah, it's the question of like, I want to make something with this express character path, and then another person who's like, I have a character that is a generalist, that they are magic. The magic can be anything. They could be a Technomancer, they could be a witch, they could be whatever. Like, it's in somebody's head, it's always going to be the different, like, what is their intention? Building the character. And like, because I can foresee if I've made a character and like it's a wizard and then Technomancer pops up and I'm like, oh, that's doing exactly what I want to do and have stretched this class to do, and now it's doing mechanically what I want, and it's better. Yeah, I'm doing that. Like, there's just different. It's always context of like what you are doing and what you are working on.
Yeah, and like it's it's something where it's like it's the whole like I like waffles, oh so you hate pancakes situation, where it's just like Technomancer does magic better than Wizard. So it's like, yeah, but that doesn't make Wizard bad. It doesn't make Wizard bad, because the point of playing a Wizard is you're playing a Wizard. You're using the Wizard mechanics because you find them interesting, or you're telling the story of a Wizard. And in all honesty as well, the difference won't be so significant anyway that like it would be substantial enough to change your mind on it. But if you're like, well, I have an idea for a character and they just use magic, but I like the mechanics for Technomancer more and it's just a stronger class, yeah, play it. I don't care. I didn't say don't play Technomancer, did I? I said, why does that make Wizard bad?
Yeah.
You know? And that's the thing, is like, they're just like, you just keep saying don't play Technomancer. I'm like, that's not what I'm saying. It's that they're two different things. You can enjoy both, because the game does not demand you to play at the highest optimal levels to have fun. Like your GM might, but the game doesn't. So it's the conversations are always annoying, because it takes, I feel like I have enough communication skills to kind of like get around these hurdles with effort. With effort, I'll state, because it's definitely not been a smooth ride the whole time. But to imagine having to deal with these kind of conversations without these kind of communication skills, like, and even then, to think that you need to have good communication skills even to even discuss these things in a relatively like normal way is kind of just irritating.
It is always the sad thing that someone can't immediately like tap into your brain and know what you mean, like around the words you say, but like understands the full meaning behind it.
Well, it's just because, again, we have that we came to the epiphany last table talk of what's the most relevant information I'm giving you in this conversation. And a lot of people are taking away less damage is good, or I don't care if this does more damage. Like that's the relevant information, right? But that's not the core of the conversation.
No, it's like the very broad discussion that wraps around eventually to like every style is good in its own way if done correctly and with good intentions. Like thumbs up.
Right.
Like that's the real answer of like every question.
Right. Yeah, for real. But even then, like, that doesn't mean you can't have conversations about, like, is a thing good or not good? Like, is a feat... Like, there's some classes that have feats that I think are dead feats that no one will take because they feel so unusable.
There's a hefty amount of dog shit in Pathfinder, and that's what happens when you make a game with a lot of choice. A lot of those choices will be bad. Like, that's just kind of the nature of the beast. It's always the bit where I will always tell and like want people to embrace the beauty of not caring about discourse and like not caring about the outcome of stuff, because like mainly not caring about the outcome of stuff that doesn't matter, doesn't have a tangible impact on your real life. That's at least my perspective on any game thing. I will talk about it because I think the conversation is interesting, but like I don't have a vested interest in protecting Pathfinder. I don't have a vested interest in like I don't always really care if someone agrees with me at the end of a conversation. Like I even said last stream, I just like knowing why somebody had got to the opinion that is different from me, because I think different opinions on things are interesting. But like I don't put stock in my personal value into Pathfinder. Therefore, if someone doesn't agree with me on like a perspective, I can walk away going, all right, fair enough.
Yeah, and I think that viewpoint ignores kind of the idea that it's not about convincing someone or making someone think the same. It's, can we even have a conversation about this at all and like actually explore the concepts? if people are like hardballing you with pretty like base assumptions, right? That's the part that gets frustrating for me.
I think there's always the perspective with people of if there is a discussion or debate, the natural inclination is, well, obviously someone has to win said exchange. And like, that's not what this is. Like, that's not what we do. That's what a lot of other people do and like approach discussions, disagreements, and arguments. And like, there's no winning. Like, sure, and like with these opinions, like specifically, even more so, because like we're talking about some nebulous theory that always will have edge cases, will always have exceptions, will always have this. There's no objective like truth correct, like a correct opinion you can have on a tabletop game and how it should be run. You can give generalist opinions that will apply to the most like denomination of people. It's like that's really all it can hit, and it's, I don't know. I think that's always what people have in their heads, and like they're like, well, obviously I have to convince the person that they're wrong. When a lot of discussions fail at that point, because you should approach it as the like, oh, why do you think that? Like, oh, I never thought of it that way. That's fair enough, I guess. Let me adapt that into my worldview.
Yeah. It's just because people aren't properly taught communication skills, and to be fair, while arguments don't necessarily need to be won or lost, it's exactly what you said. A lot of people treat it that way. Like, an argument isn't inherently about winning or losing. It's about convincing other people of your ideas or like starting a conversation. But people in general don't treat it that way. And so it's like,
I mean, they treat the convincing the other person as the win.
Right. It's like a screwdriver, right? Like, it has a specific purpose, but a lot of people just prefer to stab each other with it. Like, you can build something with this, but it's equally as good at stabbing people in actuality. So,
I played the Hitman games.
Right. And so it's like, it can be frustrating when it's like, I want to use this tool to make a thing, and another person's just coming at me like, trying to stab me with it. And it's just like, that's not what we're doing. what are you doing? That's not why I gave you the screwdriver, Yeah. It's like, because you're right. I think it would be best if we could look at opinions online and not get invested in what people think about things, because tabletop is, in its essence, whatever your table makes it, right? So there's no wrong way your group can play, theoretically.
Literally the only way I can think of like, how are you playing tabletop wrong is like, you are not fulfilling what I believe is the core goal of any kind of communal game, which is maximum fun for the most amount of people. Like, everyone is having as much fun as possible, and it's not at the detriment of other people. Which is like, I think that, that's the most, that's the outcome you want of most things that are entertainment.
Yeah. Actually, that's an interesting thought as well. I don't think most fun, but most entertainment, I think, is a better way of putting it, because
it is the important caveat to say it. Because I have my own, funny enough, I've had this conversation like of that often. So like, oh man, I'm ready. Mainly in film, because I have the value of the worst thing a thing can be is boring, and it needs to be entertaining. And then I immediately go, now listen, this is my definition of entertaining, because I'm not saying I should make everything Marvel slop.
Right.
Like, I have a purpose. You can have something narratively like dramatic and gripping. That's entertaining. Because entertainment in that aspect is you like can walk away from the experience. You feel like you didn't waste your time. You enjoyed what you did. Like, there's a lot of elements that build into like entertained.
Yeah, because like, I wouldn't say we were having fun when Garvey died.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that wasn't fun. It was very entertaining, like that entire thing. Entertaining, again, it feels like a weird word because the English language kind of sucks. and like there's not a word for what I'm trying to get across.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting. I just had that thought, and I was just like, yeah, you know, fun is not the right word, and I think that paints a very specific picture for tabletop that I don't think is accurate. Because like
makes it sound like everything should be Legends of Adventure.
Right? Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Which is not a slight. That I genuinely really like that show, but like, that's not what every game should be. That's not my definition of fun. If you wanted the funniest game possible, I think I do think they hit funny actual play that is actually funny.
Yeah.
There are a lot of actual plays I see that are trying to do the comedic thing in the steps of Adventure Zone. And like Adventure Zone is funny and it has its like dramatic moments. Avantris is literally just funny every time.
It's really just funny. They're really funny people.
I'm so curious where they all came from because I'm looking at it and I'm like, damn, like I mean, I want to say College Humor, like the Dropout games, like Dimension 20, they're also really funny.
Yeah.
Like they're script that I almost use scripted. That's not the right word. They're just laid out differently. Like they hit different tones. They have like very serious beats. But like I've died laughing at a lot of the bits in that show. And then Avantris is just that eternally. It's just that for the whole time.
Yeah.
It has some very spooky, serious moments, I know, but overall it's just them yucking it up the whole time. And I'm happy that it's that, because I think it'd be a weaker show if it was like trying to do a Critical Role.
Yeah.
Metropolis is very funny, and a lot of that's because Hank Green is like really funny, actually.
Yeah.
Granted, the whole cast killed it, but like the idea of threatening somebody with fun facts is like the funniest thing ever.
Yeah. Yeah, those are the kind of like live plays that are live plays. Sounds weird to me. I don't know. My brain is melting. Actual plays. That's the word I'm looking for. Actual plays, I think, that are interesting to watch. I mean, if you're interested in someone else's story in like their serious game, like Critical Role, I think that's okay too. But I feel like accessibility-wise, Legends of Adventures just overall nails what I think a lot of people would find interesting and funny, which is just, hey, tabletop can be really, really fun as long as you're having a good time.
Yeah, and I'm so curious where they all came from, because every time someone pops up, I'm like, you are really funny. Like, what have you done before this? Like, you didn't just pop out like this funny. What did you do? And like, what have you made? What else have you like created in like before this? And like, I think it's the level of investment too, because like, there's a different level of investment I'm going to make with Avantris than I am going to make with Critical Role. Because Critical Role, I have to like actually kind of pay attention. I have to like stay in there in that world, in that story. And a lot of times, like when it's an actual play, God, I don't care like about their combat or any of that shit. I don't care. But when it's a show, like I like the Critical Role show more than I like the tabletop game. Like way more. I think the cartoon's more fun. It's just like the difference. Avantris I can put on while I'm playing a game, and if I zone out for a little bit, I'll probably be reeled back in with something funny.
Yeah, honestly, I think I'm looking into them now. I think Legend of Avantris, the whole thing just evolved around them just trying to make each other laugh.
Oh yeah, like that's why one of the funniest bits in that Feywild, the game they did, is there's the actual curse one of them was put through of like every time you laugh at the table you take damage.
Right. And
then everyone's like, oh, well, one, you're gonna die just trying to hold this in, but also we're going to make it worse for you. And like that's way more fun. And like you know what? That's tense. That's threatening. I'm like, don't laugh, Mace. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Like it's great.
Yeah, no, they're just good friends. They just were friends before this, and they just made a game where the whole point is just trying to make each other laugh as much as possible while role playing.
Yeah, I also think it is really funny to have weaponized, like, I love the curse mechanic that they have.
Yeah.
I think that is so fun and so great with like improv. Like, especially the fact that it can be a punishment for like you're acting up. Like I like when the GM, instead of just like face palming at something, can go, all right, I can actually like table punish you, but in a way that's like a fun improv prompt. Like that's
Right.
I love that mechanic.
Yeah, it's good. And like and that's the thing, right? Is like, don't yuck other people's yum. If someone likes watching very serious, intense roleplay stuff, like, that's just as valid as things like Legends of Evantris, which is just like pure comedy, or Dimension 20, which is college humor style comedy. You know, it's a very specific brand of like professional comedy, I guess, is a way I would put it.
That's what happens when a lot of them all went to like UCB.
Right. You know, it's oh my god, that's a lot of bonk points. So, you know, and again, it's like actually, we're getting to the end here, and I need to like end soon, so we're not going to go over too much because my brain is melting for some reason. Probably lack of food, if I'm going to be honest.
Should eat.
But it's one of those things where, like, again, the whole thing is like, the reason why I hate tabletop discourse so much is people who backseat game like Critical Role, right? People who come into the chat and are, even though they don't read chat, they don't even interact with chat like at all, who just start backseat gaming like they're playing wrong.
Ugh,
and
I
it's just,
hate it.
And it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What?
I can pull it out to even a wider extent, not just tabletop, because I feel the same fucking way, man. It's been defined, and I really like this definition of type A and type B chatters when it comes to what Northern Lion has said, you know, type A personality, type B.
Right.
Type A chatters that come into his chat, and I'm just paraphrasing his streams, are like, hey, why did you pick this option? If you rearrange your board like this, it actually will be better because statistically you're making this increase. And then there's type B chatters who are asking questions like, hey, before I send this dick pic, should I put it in a hot dog bun? Like, those are the two different types of people that watch something entertaining. And, like, I feel like I'm more on the side of type B.
Right.
Because, like, I'm here to laugh and, like, have fun. I don't care if you're playing optimally or well. I don't care. If I hear a rule, like, when I was listening to Dimension 20 stuff, there were times where I'm like, that's not how that works in the rules. This doesn't impact me at all, so I don't care. But, like, yeah, whatever. But there are people out there who could be like,
Yeah, I mean, I would say there'd probably be a type C, which is just people who are just there to chill and watch it.
Lurkers. I'm honestly more of a type C, because, like, I don't chat in things, I lurk. Mainly because I put everything on a second monitor. Like, I'm just physically not going to chat in a chat with someone who I don't know. It's like, I don't care.
Right. But it's so insane to me that there's just people out there who just can't tolerate people playing incorrectly. And you know what's worse? You know what's actually worse? These same people also don't play optimally. I guarantee 99.999% of these people who make these kind of comments fuck shit up in their own games all the time.
I can see it.
I've never met a single person, a single one of these type of people who didn't also just get something wrong when they were playing. In fact, there's a lot of times these kinds of people will correct incorrectly. I get this favorite in my comments all the time. I'm just like, actually, that's not how this works. And it's like, you're just wrong. I don't think you understand the game, because what you said makes no sense whatsoever.
Oh man, before we leave, I guess I'll have to hit, because there's a thing you should probably do. Another Northern Lion bit, kind of, but when he's playing some multiplayer games, it happened very recently. He will, if you may do that, you like correct, and you're like, what are you talking about? That's just not a thing. You got it wrong. You get banned. But your unbanned form is to go on Twitter, download a literal form someone made, a PDF that is like unbanned request form. Why did I say this? Do I know it was wrong? And it's like options to fill in, like, I haven't played the game before. I've only watched it. Like I misread something. Like you have to go through this form to admit that you were wrong, and you won't do it again. You should do that to your fans.
Yeah. I don't know if I would. I like what Girl DM does for her streams, though. She has a backseating, like, purchasable on her streams, where she'll take your backseating if you pay her like $35 or something like that.
That's a great idea.
You know?
The only one I've seen recently, there's a guy who got viral on Twitter because people in Red Dead 2 that he's playing on like Twitch kept coming in and being like, hey, did you know the best horse in the game is at this part of the map? And he's like, I don't really want to use it. I like this horse. I've named him. He's my favorite type of horse. Like, I like him. And they're like, well, no, the fastest horse, though, like stats-wise. And it happens so much. He's like, fine, let's go get the horse. He goes up all the way to that mountain. He gets it, and then he shoots it in the head.
Yeah.
And, like, kills it permanently. And it's like, shut the fuck up. Don't backseat. And I'm like, I feel like me. If I get backseated too much, I'm going to take the opposite because I want you to be upset. Because now I'm mad at you as a human being. Like, it's like, cut it out.
Well, yeah, you know, what's funny about backseating as well is there's a lot of times I think, why do I want to play the most optimally possible, right? Like, that just restricts the way I play the game in general. And like, for instance, let's take Monster Hunter. There's optimal builds that just do the most damage you could do. And sure, but the reason why I play Monster Hunter is to fight the monsters. So if I am killing the monsters too fast to actually like get the experience of fighting the monster, why the fuck am I playing the game? Like,
yeah,
like literally, I have a really bad funny build. I call it Death Bonk, and it's just a hammer with the Gypceros head, and it's just a poison hammer. It's just a poison hammer, and the whole point is I poison the enemy while I'm bonking him on the head.
Me with my sleep hammer.
And it's like, this isn't optimal. I know that's not optimal. It's fun. I like this. This is enjoyable. I like playing this way. Why would I? And don't get me wrong. Again, this is not a I like waffles so you hate pancakes situation. If what your goal is to kill the monster as fast as you can because it's a challenge, it's a goal, whatever. Sure. I think that's fine. I think that's fun. But if that's like the only thing you do with every single monster you play, I can only imagine how boring the game must eventually get for you.
Yeah, I think it's always the push of like optimizing your fun and then which direction is your fun. Because yeah, the people who like doing that, it's like, I can't relate, but whatever. Funnily enough, this is a conversation I've had with my fiance with Wuthering Waves, because they're way deeper in the trenches about it than I am, having just played for like a day or two. Because like, man, it's just fun aspects. Yeah. Where there's like the meta teams, but the problem is that my fiance's hit with and I'm hit with is like, yeah, but I don't like those characters.
Yep.
And like, because with my boy Calchero, who is Sephiroth, Virgil.
Yep.
Also, because I play Japanese, he's voiced by Japanese Dante.
Yeah.
And voiced by Yoshikage Kira. And Haki from One Piece. And Enel from One Piece. And I'm like, oh shit, I like all of the characters this guy plays even more. He's the GOAT. And then I look at the rankings and they're like, he's A tier. I'm like, I don't care if he's A tier. He's S to me.
Yeah. You know, and that's the thing, right? Like, the idea of stop playing optimal, like, whatever. That's not my what I'm saying is not you should only be playing dog shit tier things. Like, if in Monster Hunter I'm using like the iron weapon at the very beginning to hunt like master rank monsters, I don't think that's fun either. Sure, I got to fight the monster for 50 minutes. That's not fun.
I did that in Skyrim when I was on painkillers after surgery.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that story.
Yeah, Iron Swords of Sparks the entire game until the halfway through the Imperial quest line, and I got a sword, and I was like, oh. Only because it was a Dwarven Sword of Sparks. And I was like, oh, I see.
Yeah. Whoops. But like I'm not advocating for play the worst you can to play the most of a game. I'm saying let people just play the game at like a normal pace. Like, let people be average at a game, because I feel like that's kind of how games are designed in general. Like Monster Hunter, the monsters have all these moves and everything for different health thresholds and whatever for people who are not speedrunning the monster. Like, because if you're speedrunning the monster, you're going to bypass phases, and then why were those even put into the game? So the game wasn't designed for you to min-max the shit out of it, and that's the same with tabletop. Why do these feats exist if the whole point is to min-max? That's not the case. It's to tell interesting stories with interesting characters. Am I saying make a bad character who can't do anything? No. I'm saying let people be average. Let people just not hit the highest ranks of things. Like, I play a lot of Age of Wonders 4. I absolutely love that game. Could I be playing more optimally? Could I be playing certain builds better? Yes. Would I? No. Because why would I play a 4X game, which has minimum like 5 to 8 hour games, the same way every single time? That sounds boring as fuck.
Yeah, and like, it hits with people who I think are super optimized heads, but mainly it's even just my problem always extends when you're being a dick to another person to make them try to optimize and play the game you would. Because it's like, no, just have as much fun as possible. Because before you optimize heads out there, the few that will hear this, I guess, I think there's a barrier where it's like, yeah, you can play the meta option, or you can play the option that's more fun to you, therefore you know it better, and like you will play it better.
Yeah.
So there's going to be the skill bump that somebody makes instead of like, I just took the best thing in the game and I'm going to immediately start playing with it. And maybe you learn it, but somebody who's like built something of their own from the soul, I think is going to operate that character, that kit, inherently better than a meta pick could ever be. Unless you just accidentally walked into it.
Yeah, which sometimes happens. I've done that a few times.
I accidentally have picked a lot of top tier characters in fighting games I play. I don't mean to, but because I just think they look cool, and then they turn out they are cool.
And see, optimization in tabletop makes so little sense to me, because literally you can just, like, if you tell the story good enough and you work with your GM, you can make any character broken, you know, and then like meta build this, meta build that, have a meta woman. Like,
yeah,
it's like, it's like, it doesn't matter, right? Because we're playing a make-believe game, and all the GM has to do is just break the game, which they can do, and boom, my build is now stronger than meta. So what was the point?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's gonna be it for us. rant about meta. Oh, God, rant about meta over. Enjoy games how you like enjoying them. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise, especially when it comes to TTRPGs, because as long as you're being better entertained, I don't feel like any amount of meta can change that whatsoever.
True. And
if you are super entertained by meta, good for you. That doesn't mean it's the same for everyone else. It's like League of Legends when someone's like, why do you play this character with such a low win percentage? It's like, why would I play the game if I couldn't play the character I like?
Why would I play the option? That's not fun.
Why would I play something I don't like? Like, ugh. But anyway, before we head out, Alex, do you have anything you want to leave us with before we leave today?
Yeah. Well, I got YouTube videos. If you like lore content, I made a video on the assassins in Trench Crusade, but a lot of it was also me giving historical stuff and going into weird esoteric lore about our real world. So it's very fun.
Yeah.
And then I'm making a video on the orcs, as I've said at the beginning, and it's going to be a rabbit hole. I don't know if it's going to be a longer video. I don't know if it's going to take longer. It's just going to be weird. But if you like 40k and Trench Crusade and all that, go sub to Glue Boy.
For me, I second that. Go sub to Glue Boy. I'm not making videos right now, so it's like, you know. But if you're interested in the new Victorian steampunk style, like pseudo horror TTRPG that we're playing with the 333, come check us out every Tuesday, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I do think the game's got some really good bones, and I'm very, very happy with our progress so far. It's been a lot of fun, and you can even catch our last session on the live tab on the channel. That was very funny. Poor Booter, his character got utterly destroyed last session, and it was great. I really, really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I'm a new dad, so videos are still kind of on like a temporary hiatus. But hopefully that will change in the near-ish future, and I can get back to making videos. But until then, I'm just taking care of a baby so much, so, you know, what can you do? But anyway, that's going to be it for us. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll go ahead and say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night.